29 minutes now past the hour on this Thursday, the 24th day of March 2022. Mark Ledbetter joins us this morning. And Mark is with the Talladega County Sheriff's Office, also a chaplain for Sylacauga PD, and he's the director of the Greater Sylacauga Critical Incident Response Network. And I asked Mark to join us this morning. First of all, Mark, good morning to you.
Good morning, Jimmy Dow.
Good to have you with us this morning. And I don't know if any of us thought, I've never seen it in my lifetime that I can remember, as much rain as we had in a short period of time Tuesday night into Wednesday morning.
We had 3 to 5 inches at least over a very short period of time, so the results shouldn't have been unexpected given circumstances and topography and situation here in Sylacauga and surrounding area, because the reports from here to Childersburg to Fayetteville just
we got some pictures I want you to take a look at, and you can kind of respond as far as these pictures you took yourself. Is that right?
These pictures were submitted to me. This is behind, my understanding, this is behind Big Daddy's.
Down at Fayetteville, right?
Fayetteville. These pictures were pictures that I solicited reports on things going on in Sylacauga.
Okay.
That's where these came from. This is off DeSoto Cavern Parkway. This was submitted.
That doesn't look good right there.
No, I'm trying to recall what that is. I think that was in Fayetteville somewhere.
May have been Glover's Ferry somewhere down there.
That's Marble Valley. This is the rescue effort they made at the house.
That's almost unbelievable. You have to rescue people from the rain that we had, but that was the case in several areas.
Again, all of this is unofficial, undocumented as far as, but I rely upon this because there were at least 3 agencies involved in rescuing an elderly. This is the Sycamore Cemetery Road. This individual ran off into this, and obviously a washout. There you can see one of our deputy sheriffs.
That's the only road, Sycamore Cemetery Road.
People beyond that are stuck.
Yeah.
They're really stuck. It's unfortunate. Fortunately, this individual was not hurt. This is as you're approaching Childersburg, close to the Sadie Lee housing development. That's some of it is. I've had reports from, again, all over the county. Yeah. All over the southern part of the county, because our focus primarily is from Winterboro north. That again is at Big Daddy's. Behind it, close to Emerald Valley Road, that area in Fayetteville.
When did you begin to paying close attention to this weather system?
This weather system, really, the forecast didn't call for this, and then all of a sudden it really developed. So I started watching it Sunday, what reports I was getting in, and so Sunday I began to pay attention, and then all of a sudden we're under a severe threat. To the west of us, unfortunately, there were several tornadoes associated with this system. And of course, this weather was brought in up from the Gulf, the warm weather. Then you have the cold front in behind. I'm not a meteorologist, but everybody hears James Spann and others talk about it, DICE. So I'm not a meteorologist. I just follow what terminology they use and projections. But I began watching this, and what I try to do on Facebook primarily is send out alerts, let people know what's coming, to take it serious. And I think this episode helps nail down the fact that the alerts are not just given because meteorologists and the National Weather Service don't have anything else better to do. They're concerned about the safety, welfare of the community, of citizens. And so I began watching this, watch it develop, and anticipated that we're going to have severe weather. Wednesday night, or not Tuesday, what morning was it? Wednesday morning, I received a phone call at 12:36 from the local police department about a family.
That's in the AM, right?
AM, yes, that morning. And I received a phone call saying that there's needed some assistance because the fire department is going to try to extract the family from over in the Harper Springs area, Moats Road area, and they were dispatched, and we were looking for some place to place them temporarily, which is an issue in our communities around here. I don't know. I'd like to know where the woman rescued by the Lay Lake and Oak Grove fire departments, where they relocated her. But the issue in these situations, as in tornadoes and other weather events like the snowstorm we had in 2014, is having temporary shelter. First Baptist Church has always been ready to respond. Mignon has responded as well. Part of this network that is trying to bring a connection, a collaborative effort, communications, who has a shelter, who doesn't have a shelter, where can people go?
How did this get started?
Well, it's been a long-term project for me since I was introduced to disaster relief, and I made a visit to Haiti after their earthquake with a group, and so my interest peaked, and then I became certified as a CERT responder, also a disaster response chaplain. I received critical incident intervention as part of law enforcement and community chaplain work. But this concern for me is difficult because most reaction is, why didn't we have something in place? And so most responses, many responses, should I say, are reactive instead of proactive. And so what the network does is involved in getting primarily to recruit, train volunteers to respond to critical incidents. And there's a host of ways that people can get involved in this. You have to be up front with it. You've got to be proactive. You have to have things in place should something of the magnitude of a tornado take place. Sylacauga has always been resilient, even though the history of tornadoes are seemingly ancient as far as 1932, 90 years ago, when the infamous tornado struck. It affected not only Sylacauga, it also was Gant's community at that time. There were reports from people in Fayetteville and Talladega Springs and other surrounding areas. And the network is involved, again, about a 15-mile radius around Sylacauga, serving as the hub, Winterboro, Goodwater, Hollins, Talladega Springs, northern Coosa County, western Clay County.
You know, a lot of the systems I've noticed will come across Talladega Springs and northern Coosa County,
Yes.
Talladega Springs and Talladega County, and I don't know what the pattern is, but we get a lot of systems come through there.
Well, basically the pattern's going to be from southwest to northeast generally, but they come through there, and I don't know the reason for it, but Sylacauga has been exposed within 18 miles north or south to these type of storms. We have dodged a few bullets here in December. The local community see it. They went south of us or north of us, but it impacts our other smaller communities, and that's one of the things we have in mind, is being a resource for the smaller communities. When I say smaller communities, I'm talking about Fayetteville and Talladega Springs and Hollins. They don't have the resources that we might be able to produce through this volunteer effort. It involves trying to get industries and local businesses also involved for resources. But the biggest thing we need is a pool of volunteers.
You know, Mark, people may think, well, why are you talking about this after the fact? This was very traumatic for a lot of people, a lot of business owners, a lot of property owners here in our area.
Yes, sir. There's about 11% of our area here in Sylacauga are prone to severe flooding. And I think that what we witnessed was the epitome of flash flooding. We have been prone to that in the past. I remember as a kid living on Hickory Street. in the 60s. I can remember Hickory Street being a steady stream because we had a flash flood then, and we floated on inner tubes going down the street. So this area is prone to flash flooding for a lot of reasons. And it is traumatic because I remember when I was your neighbor here working in Daily Home, we had to put sandbags
Yeah, I
to
remember
keep the
that.
water out
Yeah.
of the Daily Home offices. It would run off from the hillside close to the cemetery, and it would just, but Broadway is prone to flash flooding from Spring Street all the way this way. But there's, I say several, there are areas in Sylacauga that are prone. And obviously, when you have Crooked Creek conversion with the Tallahatchie and then Mahi Creek conversion, you can understand why Center Point Acres area, Coleman Bridge Road, Pecan Road, you can understand. You have runoff from the Merkle Mountain on both sides, a watershed, and you've got areas like Top Value Recycling, Miller Tire in that area. It was flooded. Then on the other side, you had Fulton's Gap. Then you had, like I said, in Fayetteville area, there's multiple creeks, and it's all running to the Coosa River. So this is a natural floodplain because all these creeks and tributaries are going to the Coosa River. They're coming off the Cheehaw, and I tell you, if it had not been for the foresight of forefathers who put up the flood control series of dams, like at Mahi and Lake Howard is a reservoir, I don't know what it would have been if we didn't have those series of preventions put in place. That was very fortuitous that they had the foresight several years ago to put these things in place. Because, like I said, it could have been a lot worse, but I had water, I had one report saying that water's up to the bridge on Tallahatchie Creek there going on Country Club Road, not too far from your neighborhood. The water up to the bridge. The Ledbetter Flats, that wooden bridge, it was up there, and north of that, or southeast, anyway, I'm getting my directions, just past that, it was a floodplain, looked like a river. You had reports like that as far as you can see from unofficial reports from friends in law enforcement. Sylacauga was flooded a lot of different places.
Yeah, downtown areas, business owners, you know, they're closed yesterday, a number of businesses, and if you're closed one business day, you're behind the 8 ball almost.
Yeah, you lose economically, you've got cleanup, you know, and this is what the network would be. If we had something in place, then we might have volunteers to come in and help folks, you know, as a community spirit, because this is expensive for cleanup, especially you lose inventory perhaps. So we just want to be there. We're going to form a corps of critical incidents chaplains that can come in and help individuals who may be experiencing some emotional trauma or even spiritual trauma. But it can be, your life stands still. Fortunately, for a situation like this, it'll be easy to move on because it's not long term. You had a tornado or something like that, that's a different story. We have even at times the effects from hurricanes. As you well know, in 2020, that turned into a tropical storm, but we got hit. And it's interesting that the pattern we talked about earlier started from South Talladega County, Talladega Springs, went through Gants, hit the main avenue area up there, right up here, Fort Williams and Main Avenue, hit that area, devastated the schools, wiped out one of the most beautiful, at that time, residential areas. But see, we also had one in 1917 and 1910 that generally hit the same area. So there seems to be a pattern. Sylacauga fits in an oval bowl, and I'm going to make an assumption here that once the storm gets in that bowl, that it takes a certain pattern. Same thing happened with the 2014 snow. You had Merkle Mountain, you had Herds Gap, you have this, and we're trapped. And we had 60 out-of-town residents stay at the shelter overnight.
That brings me to a point. Until recent years, we've basically flown by the seat of our pants. When you have a potential disaster or traumatic situation, it can affect a lot of people. And this is what this is about: getting more people involved and knowing what to do and when to do it.
Absolutely. Part of the reducing is planning, being ahead of the ball, getting details in, having the plans in place, the operation plans, coordinating with the city, with whatever emergency plans that they have. That what we do is become a support function. We just have everything in place. I get a call from the director of the city emergency plan, and then everything unfolds and we respond, from anything to volunteer reception centers. People may think that your response is going to be search and rescue. Well, there's people that's trained for that, so we don't send everybody out. But if you can use a keyboard, you can volunteer, because registering volunteers. If industries have pallet jacks that they can loan out when we go to points of distribution, we need equipment where we can get that so we can move supplies around for distribution in strategic locations throughout the community. And again, this is not just Sylacauga oriented, because Childersburg could be affected by a storm that we're not. So we want to respond to the Childersburg area. Fayetteville want to respond to what their needs. They may be involved in the incident. Hollins, Goodwater, up to Winterboro, Alpine, all that area. So our concern is not just my Ford no more. We want to affect the lower Talladega.
We've got a lot of people, individuals that are gifted.
Yes.
They've got the energies. They want to help. And thank God for our first responders. I mean,
Yes.
where would we be without them?
Absolutely. But this goes as a support function of our first responders. You remember the Avondale Mill fire?
Right.
And I was concerned because you had at least 6 units, volunteer and local units, respond to that fire. And the police officers, at that time, my primary focus was law enforcement with Sylacauga Police Department. They're out there managing, directing traffic, trying to keep sightseers out and so forth. And so I just went and bought some water and went out and found my officers and gave them a bottle of water if they wanted it. The idea is, in that situation, it'd been good if we had a hospitality center in which it gave these guys fighting this fire a chance to step aside, get some refreshment, get some Powerade, Gatorade, whatever, a place to sit down. If you have victims involved in the fire, then you have a place for them to go until we're able to get a plan for evacuation, relocation, and things like this. So those things need people who are concerned. You don't have to. You have to have the heart of concern to serve water.
Right.
So there's a lot of ways people can really get involved. I mentioned the point of distribution centers. That's where people can either walk in, pedestrians, or they can drive in to a location, and food, basic staples are given, water, even tarps if they're available, and so forth, are provided for. It takes 19 people to run one point of distribution. And if you have 5 of those scattered around town, then you do the math.
Right, so those of us who are not really affected by the flooding.
Yes.
But we saw pictures of people being rescued out of their home. They just don't snap their finger and drink a cup of coffee, go back into that house. What happens to them?
Well, they'll have to be, they have to have some place to go. I don't know, again, I'd like to know, because I'm sure the people, the agencies, the volunteer fire departments, they probably had a plan, or they developed a plan, and they relocated the space. So hopefully they have family they can go to, but you're right. They just don't go back in their homes. They might want to, but some of them may not be safe to go back into. I had a woman approach me yesterday. There was a little dispute whether she lives in the county or the city, trying to get some relief. She was concerned that her mobile home is going to be rocked off its foundations or flooded. Where would she go? Well, if there needs to be at least a temporary plan to relocate them to a designated location until they're able to assess, get their wits for one thing, and assess and develop a plan for that individual. So, you know, it's not that complicated. It's just a matter of organizing, planning, and getting it done.
Yeah. Mark Ledbetter, Director of the Greater Sylacauga Critical Incident Response Network. And Mark, how can people get involved in this program? And a lot of people want to help, but they just don't know where to go and how to do it.
Well, one thing, they can contact me. We have an advisory board, so it's not just me. They can contact me either. I have a email. They contact that. That email is going to be cscsylacauga@gmail.com.
Okay.
Very simple. I have a website called communityservicechaplain.com. They can go there and they can click critical incident on one of the tabs, and they have a contact that's there. My phone number,
Okay.
256-626-9627. If you're an individual, we want to recruit from faith-based organizations, civic organizations, you know, clubs that we have here in town, Kiwanis, Civitans, etc. Local businesses, industries. They can contact me. How can we get involved? I can come to churches. I can come to the different organizations and present a program on what we want to do. I have developed a skill survey where people give it to them, and they can look at it, and it's multiple things you can do. If you have a car and transport people, and volunteers need to understand this, that there are volunteer immunity laws in place, that as long as you're observing the protocols of the agencies that deploy you, you have certain immunities against lawsuits and things of this nature. It's built into the city code. It's the Alabama code for volunteers and so forth. So volunteers can come out, and they shouldn't be afraid of volunteering if they're afraid of getting sued or something like that. There is immunity for those individuals who step up.
What we don't want to do, Mark, is wait till the next possible traumatic event or flood or tornado or hurricane or whatever it may be to put this in action. We've got an opportunity to do it right now.
We have an opportunity to do it right now. And the advantage is there was an incident that took place in northwest Georgia. I forget the community's name, but they had plans in place. They had things in place. And when FEMA got there, they had everything under control. They didn't have to step up and step in. And so they just kind of had a natural flow, and basically they handled it themselves because they had everything in place. And that's one of the goals, is to have all these things in place. It's easy, out of sight, out of mind. Fair weather today, we know what, we used to be able to predict this as being a spring weather, okay? October 2020, the hurricane tropical storm came through here, and there was rescue involved in that here in Sylacauga. Houses were pummeled by fallen trees. Last December, there were 2 tornadoes that came in December. So, you know, and at one time Alabama was the tornado alley, but it's shifted west, Texas, Oklahoma, on up to that part of the country. But still, as we have seen, okay, everybody looks Tuscaloosa. They're the first ones to get the get the alerts, it seems like, in that area. And then generally it's going to go towards Birmingham, Blount County, part of that part. You know, remember Coleman got hit a few years ago. Just because it doesn't happen to us does not mean it will not happen. For some, it's not a matter of if, it's when.
You know, before we go, you know, with the, I think 5 to 6 inches of rain in just a small window of time, a couple of hours or so, and you know, we think that we can just get in our vehicles and drive through the flooded areas and everything's going to be all right, but this should have taught us a valuable lesson right here.
We need to be prepared for it. There's things that people can do. There's things that we can't do because people are already in place. You can't rezone certain places and ask people to move, I don't guess. There could be levees and flood walls where necessary, but the biggest thing is communication. And this is where news agencies cooperating with the network get the word out. Communications and education. Letting people know, let them evaluate where they are, what can they do. If their property is prone to flooding, there's things that they can do. But we don't need to wait. These are things that we can do now. And again, the problem for so many is, well, come July, we won't be thinking about what took place. Well, July is a good time to plan for it. From now on is the time to plan for it. We cannot wait till disaster strikes and then say, well, why didn't we have something in place?
Yeah.
Why couldn't we respond?
Mark Ledbetter, the director of the Greater Sylacauga Critical Incident Response Network. Mark is a local chaplain here and also employed with the Talladega County Sheriff's Office. He's got a vast law enforcement background and family has a background in law enforcement. And Mark, we appreciate you coming today. For people who would like to know more about the Greater Sylacauga Critical Incident Response Network and how you can be a part, how you can volunteer, one more time, give them that information to contact you.
Contact me by phone, 256-626-9627. Email cscsylacauga@gmail.com. Website is communityservicechaplain.com.
All right. Mark, thanks for being with us this
Thank
morning.
you for letting me come.
All right. We got more Daybreak coming up right after you watch this.